Alex, the justices, they know the public increasingly sees them, the court, as political.
Oh, they absolutely do. Usually during the summer recess, they take time, they go on vacation, they go off the grid. That is not what happened this summer. It was really a summer tour of defense. You had different justices making speaking engagements through all over the country, talking to people of all ages, trying to defend the fact that they say the court is not political. You had someone like Justice Alito doing so, even just as recently as last week, blaming the media, saying they're the ones, in fact, who have made the court political. But on the other hand, people like Justice Elena Kagan have criticized her own bench this summer, saying that she doesn't understand where some of the decisions have come from. All of this is coming as the approval ratings of the court are at an all-time low, 40%. That is the lowest chance it has ever been since this question was first asked. I talked to Anita Hill, a law professor and obviously someone who is intimately involved with one specific justice on this court, Justice Clarence Thomas. I asked her what she thought about this and the status of the court. I'm just curious how you feel about the court itself when you have Justice Thomas recently saying it could be the most dangerous branch. You have Justice Breyer and Justice Coney Barrett saying that the court is not political. You know, what's your view on this? Where do you think the court stands in 2021?
I have not reached any conclusion about whether this court or any other court is political. My position has always been that when someone sits on the country's highest court for a lifetime appointment, that their integrity should be impeccable. And that's as far as I go, and the reason that I testified to begin with, because I had information that, in fact, Justice Thomas's was not impeccable.
You know, I think it almost gets lost a little bit that you are a lawyer yourself and that this is, you know, the pinnacle of, you know, your industry, essentially. But now you are not just a lawyer. You are also a professor. You teach a course on race and gender at Brandeis University. You also teach about social justice. How have your lessons changed since, I mean, we've seen just such changes over the last few years. So how much have your lessons changed since then?
What I teach now is a combination of policy and law. And they're still based on theory. But more and more today, what we have are real examples, lived examples of social injustice that we can draw on to inform the theory and to give students ideas and skills and tools to go out and make the kind of social justice changes that they want to make.
You know, it's interesting. Justice Thomas spoke at the University of Notre Dame recently. Obviously, justices don't make a lot of speeches. And even during that point, there were protesters who were chanting, "I believe Anita Hill." And when he was asked questions after his speech, he called the confirmation hearings the craziness and basically said that your story had to do with Democrats' position on abortion. 30 years later, to hear your experience categorized as basically a political exercise, I just wonder how that sits with you still.
Well, there's no basis, in fact, for anything of that nature, attaching my story and my experience with a political issue. I was there testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee because I believe that the Supreme Court is maybe the most important government body in this country. As a lawyer, I also knew that I had relevant information about the integrity of the candidate and his ability to really be a fair and impartial judge, especially in cases of gender discrimination, sexual harassment specifically. And that's why I was there. There was no political agenda on my part. It was really what I felt was my civic duty to come forward with relevant information about a nominee for the court.
Your book focuses so much on other stories. I mean, you obviously talk about yourself, but you focus on how much these issues permeate every part of our culture. But of course, people are probably curious about Anita Hill, the person. And so with this book and with the other books that you've written, what do you hope that people take away from them about you that maybe they didn't know before?
Well, part of my story is, and all of my, really all of my story has to do with the work that I do. It is so integrated into who I am that the work that I do has changed and evolved over the years because I've moved from teaching straight law and what happens, teaching about what happens within courts, to teaching a combination of law and policy. And what that means is that, you know, today, what we have to do is that we've got to look outside of the courtroom to see how we can make change in this society. Since 1991, I've heard from so many people who have been victims of gender-based violence. Their stories aren't exactly the same as mine. I've heard from people who've been incest survivors, survivors of intimate partner abuse. I've heard from people who have been rape victims and sexual assault victims. And what I know today is that the problem of sexual harassment and all of those other behaviors are integrated. They're not, you know, you cannot solve any of those other issues without solving or addressing all of them and seeing how they are connected. So I don't separate my story, my personal story, my professional story from the stories of the other survivors that I write about in the book.